A wonderfully good and warm and delightful and welcoming evening to a brand new edition of Two Full Tosses, brought to you by myself, Dan Nicholl, and a fully sanitized Alan Committie, and also brought to you by Chris Gale, hair dye, getting that beard the perfect shade of grey. What a week it has been. There's been a World Test Championship. There's been a T20 series I'm playing. I think there's a Pakistani series happening in Dubai, played by, I actually lose track of how this is all happening. But most importantly, we have Alan Committie looking as shimmering and fabulous as ever. A very good evening, Mr. Committie.
Mr. Nicholl, thank you so much. What a pleasure. What a delight. Here we are, level 4 in South Africa. Day 1 of new lockdown restrictions, fully sanitized, as you said. But thank goodness for lots of cricket around the world to keep us highly entertained and deeply interested. So that's helped. It's in a small measure, I think.
Indeed, it has. We have a test series complete. We are midway through, or to 40% of the way through a T20 series in the Caribbean, and we've also got tonight. And I'm slightly shivering. My hand is just quivering ever so slightly. If you took, I'm trying to work it out. If Ian Botham were to had a love child. And I was trying to work this out, so I got it absolutely and perfectly right. But I think it would have to have been with Lance Klusner. You're kind of getting in to the space we are starting to edge around the corner and glance towards in terms of the caliber of the all-round greatness joining us as our very special guest tonight. I might actually burst into tears and not be able to speak properly when he joins us, because he is our special guest, and I can't wait to bring him on. And that is one half of the highlights of the show. The other, of course, before we talk about the cricket from the week past, is our lost legend, and it is a perfect way on which to get the show going properly. We confirm who that lost legend is just a little later, but Alan Committie, if you will, give us a pictorial preview of this week's lost legend.
Well, now you just listen to me. He's no Lee Barnard. That's very clear. But here's a lovely little clue, a pictorial clue, if you will, where he's standing, what's behind him. Look at that beautiful, awful, vomity colored sweater that he's wearing. Who is this? Do you know? Why don't you use your stubby little fingers and type a little answer into the chat box and tell us who this week's lost legend is. Oh, we love and miss this man. What a man. But he's no Lee Barnard. Let's find out a little later who he is.
The combination of the smile and the jersey suggests he does a lot of bird watching, and legally he's not allowed within 500 yards of a primary school.
That's exactly right. And that, in fact, is on his stats page from Wisdom. So well done. I don't know if you'd seen that before, but you're very close. Let's find out a little later who that might be.
All right, I think I know who this one is for a change, and I see a couple of people already having a crack at it. We'll come back to you and let you know who that lost legend is in just a moment. Let's have a look. First of all, New Zealand versus India, the World Test Championship. And what I loved about this, aside from the fact that 14 of the New Zealand starting 11 were South African, and that all the appeals were Howzat as opposed to Howzat, and it was very easy to get mixed up, is the fact that the grace with which the defeat was taken by Virat Kohli was so delightful, where he immediately, after hurling his dummy to the ground and jumping up and down on it, furiously insisted that it had to be at least 3 tests, unless, of course, New Zealand had gone 2-0 up, at which case it should be 5 tests, unless they'd gone 3-0 up, when it should be 7 tests, at which case 4, and a 9 tests, and 11, and Virat, you lost. Take it on the chin. It's New Zealand.
You were performing as if you were a Bangladeshi all-rounder. And quite honestly, it was a disappointment to see. The match, which was played over 14 days, 15 of which were rained out, still managed to get a result. New Zealand, somehow always coming from behind, even when they're ahead, lapped themselves and beat India fairly and squarely. And to that, credit must be given. Well done, them. And if I hear one more time how nice this New Zealand team is, how pleasant and good sports, I'm going to vomit on that jersey we saw earlier worn by our lost legend. But I still say, well done, New Zealand.
And of course, vomiting is how they created the first New Zealand one-day jersey of about 20 odd years ago, that off-beige abomination. I mean, nobody has ever met a nice New Zealand cricketer. God forbid we ever have one of them on the show. Anyway, but well done. And well done to New Zealand, because they're a country, a very small country. They don't have electricity. There's no running water. And their population, which is modest, mostly plays rugby. And yet they've decided, we've realized we're actually not that good at rugby. We're going to play cricket instead. We'll borrow a whole pile of South Africans, and now they're the World Test champions. Well done to the littlest island of Australia.
The island that could, almost, mostly, and have.
Indeed. All right. Look, well done to New Zealand, and when the TV highlights get there in late November, I know there will be great excitement in the village of Auckland as they circle around the town square and dance around very excitedly. Not the only cricket, though. We have seen the West Indies versus South Africa. West Indies T20 team, average age 61 years, 214 days, 6 hours, 3 minutes and a bit, and yet still in that first test, the sight, Andre Russell, Kagiso Rabada's first delivery, bowled at 191 kilometers an hour, delivered. He almost pointed baseball style, 160 yards out the ground. I get heartbroken when I see that.
Hasn't landed yet, still traveling, I'm told. Extraordinary. Chris Gale, as you say, grey beyond, like a veritable Gandalf. A lord of just standing there with that, wielding the bat, and magnificent. I mean, didn't perform in the second T20, but in the first T20, the West Indians stood up and decimated us, I think is the only way to describe the thrashing that was handed us. To the very young, inexperienced side. We keep saying that because there are people who are experienced, but they never come to the party, and the inexperienced people don't often turn up. So it's left to the umpires to carry our batting effort, and often just don't kind of deliver the results we're looking for. But having said that, in the second T20, our bowlers came to the fore, and although we didn't play well, we played less badly than West Indies did. So a real cricket spectacle.
And we will take that in a year of a T20 World Cup. Listen, we've got an incredibly exciting guest. I know most of you have been saying to me, Dan, they've been asking you, Alan, is this the week that KP is on? It was his birthday earlier on this week. Again, I think it's his fourth one this year as he gets lots of presents from himself. But no, it's not KP. We've gone bigger. We've gone better. We've gone monumental. But before we introduce and welcome and fawn over our brand new guest, I would like to ask you, please, if you will, Mr. Committie, to introduce more formally and see if Gary Van Lochenberg, Barnaby Stander and Gavin Welsh are correct, who Alan's lost legend is this week.
Well, since we're about to introduce one of the game's great all-rounders, I thought it fitting to look back at one of South Africa's great all-rounders. He's a lost legend. He's no Lee Barnard, that's obvious, but he is our apple farmer. He is our bludgeoning right-handed batsman and slow, I want to say slow medium right-arm bowler. He is, of course, Adrian Caper. Magnificent, lovely. Yes, Gary, of course you got it, sir. Well done, you. Adrian, all right, Barnaby, calm down. Adrian Caper, Capes of Good Hope. Look at Gavin playing all wordsmithy there. You veritable bastion of words. It's what a delight to see this man in full flight. It was. I wasn't a fan because, of course, he played for Province and I was a Transvaal supporter. But even on the occasion when the North and South met, there he is, a young Adrian Caper turning his arm over, and the man would somehow have a golden arm, always picking up wickets. And when he hit the ball, you want to talk about Dre Russell. Well, this was our Dre Russell. Look at the man there. Oh, he would play off front and back. He would actually fall forward as he drove through the covers. The brilliance that was the all-rounding magnificence of Adrian Caper, a lost legend worthy of our attention this week.
A fine cricketer. I watched him many times, and gee, can you imagine him playing T20 cricket? He would have been incredible. I see Tace Brits, who's watching the show at the moment. I wish I could have seen the game where Caper smashed England out the park in about 1990. We could only listen to it on the radio as they didn't broadcast it on television. So basically where you find yourself in New Zealand today. And then Gary van Lochtenberg, pretty good fly half as well. The Peter Kirsten of his day. All right. Well, a great lost legend there. A wonderful, wonderful man was Adrian Caper. So too is this man. He heals sick children with a touch. When he visits India for his current commentary stints, he played some of the great and most definitive innings of his day. And he is not a South African. In fact, he comes all the way, as you might have guessed, from New Zealand. He's an old mate of mine. He's a far better golfer than he is a cricketer, but he's still a pretty good cricketer. Please welcome from Auckland, New Zealand, Mr. Scott Styris.
Hello, gentlemen. Is that the biggest letdown for any viewers that you do get? And I can't imagine there are many. Is that the biggest letdown of a guest that you've ever had?
There are almost a dozen people who are busy Googling you to find out exactly who you are at the moment.
Oh, I know. Ian Botham. What was it? Ian Botham and Lance Klusener. Was that?
Klusener.
That's right.
Actually, Adrian Caper. I think I remember him, Adrian Caper. Was he part of your 92 World Cup squad?
Yeah.
He was indeed.
Yeah. In fact, he bowled out Alan Border first ball in our opening game. Do you remember that, Dan Nicholl? I'll never forget a student watching Alan Border take the long walk to the centre, take guard and get castled, and take the long walk back to the misery of Bill Lawry on comms. It was fantastic. That was Adrian Caper, right arm over.
I also remember that because it was a New Zealand umpire who, I think Alan Donald nicked someone off first ball. It almost went to first slip, but that was the New Zealand umpire. It was a relationship built between South Africa and New Zealand right back from then.
Man, yes.
Now, of course, this puts you in an interesting space, Mr. Styris, because you cheerfully celebrate everything New Zealand does, when in fact you're not really a Kiwi, because you're actually, God forbid, an Australian.
No.
No, I'm with you. No, I don't have a single blood relation from Australia. My parents went over there for 10 years, decided to just go over there and live for 10 years. And my brother and I were born there before they saw the light and came back to New Zealand. So I do take a lot of stick from that, especially from our Australian friends. But if I was any good, they would claim me as their own, but they don't. They actually try and push me back to New Zealand.
Oh dear. Well, look, it's a delight to have you on the show for many, many reasons, mostly because we couldn't find anybody else, but principally because you are somebody who's got really fond memories, both of South Africa and South Africans. You played with many of them over while you were ironing Stephen Fleming's shirts at Chennai, and you've also spent a lot of time here in South Africa. What are the best memories of the South Africans and of time here in South Africa?
Yeah, I haven't been over there for a while, which has been the disappointing part, because it's probably one of the countries that you always look forward to going to. You're quite right. The place itself is magnificent. The crowd's always fiery over there. Your team is always fantastic, although they all play for us now. But before then it was. It's just so different. Some of the jokes that you were telling about New Zealanders, there are a lot of differences between South Africa and New Zealand, but at the end of the day, you're also our main rivals in rugby, and therefore we do have that special bond with you guys because of the fact that there is that friendly rivalry, and the fact that you try and claim that you're Rugby World Cup champions when you couldn't even beat us in that tournament is a bit of a joke to us. But hey, it's such a good place, and I look forward to getting back there and you actually buying me a beer for the first time ever.
That would never happen.
Yeah, I think you break up there slightly, so nobody heard any of that. You've got so many friends. And one of the things I love about the game of cricket, many sports, but cricket in particular, you build up these friendships over the years. I think the IPL has done that in a unique way. And I look particularly on social media, and just occasionally I see a little hint of fashion that suggests that the Faf du Plessis influence might have found its way into your life, Scott Styris.
Look, Faf will like to no, that's not true. That's not true. That's simply wrong. Faf wears either women's or kids' clothing that don't fit. And I don't do that. It's all my wife who's standing here watching this at 7:15 in the morning. But it's her influence. Every now and again, she gets it slightly right with fashion. But I'm not giving Fuff any credit whatsoever. Can't do it because they're all so small.
And usually slightly torn and smelling slightly of Mrs. Duplessis' perfume.
Yeah, when you get your own sunscreen made up and you order it specifically for you, which has a little tint and moisturizer in it to make sure that you're looking good on the field, then I think you've gone another step, and that's what Fuff does. So I can't, for the life of me, no one would put me in his bracket anyway, but I'm not putting myself in there, even from a fashion sense.
Scott, about where you are in the world at the moment. Are you still doing a lot of commentary? Do you miss the game of cricket playing? And that's a couple of years back now, but it was such a big part of your life. Where's Scott Styris in 2021?
Yeah, I'm in Auckland predominantly, but pretty much did everything of all our cricket, all the TV stuff, all the international stuff. We've just had a change of broadcaster, so it's no longer on television over here. It's all streamed only.
Wow.
And so we've got a whole new group. So the likes of Ian Smith, who many cricket fans will know from a lot of the World Cups, etc., no longer does the cricket either. Simon Doull, who does the world stuff. So I just travel now around the world, do a lot of my work in India mainly, which has been a huge amount of fun with the IPLs, with the World T20s and their T20s. They've got a definite product, a subscription product, which they use, which, as Dan can attest to, people have to pay specifically just to watch me, which you can understand totally. But
huge.
But yeah, so do I miss cricket? No, not really. I don't actually, and I must be one of the few who I didn't even watch the final of the World Test Championship. So first thing I did in the morning, though, to be perfectly honest, was get up and find some highlights and sit down and watch those. But no, I don't watch a lot of live cricket anymore, which has actually been quite good. I get my summers back for the first time ever. But I tell you what, it's always on, whether it be a scorecard, whether it be some highlights or something on in the background, because I played pretty much with all of them except for our imports from this New Zealand Cricket Academy over there in South Africa. They're the only ones I haven't played with or against. So, I still want to see how those guys are all going, and hopefully the team keeps performing well, which they have been.
They have been, yeah.
It's obviously lifted not just the New Zealand cricket team, but the entire country and the culture by bringing in South Africans to kind of take you to the next level as a people, as a society, as a generation. What is, though, and I ask this quite honestly and quite seriously, what is the general New Zealand reaction to the fact that 80% of your national cricket team speaks Afrikaans as the first language?
Well, we have to. It's a little bit like an alcoholic or something, where you have to break them right down and almost reteach them how to be people again, and then you can build them back up. They never lose the cricket ability, but we've got to sort them out as people first, and that's why it takes 3 or 4 years. There's this rule that they must qualify as people for 3 or 4 years first before they can make the side, and the successful ones are the ones we've been able to rehabilitate. So,
the breaking down, is that the breaking down of the vowels as well, so that they stop speaking English properly, so that everyone gets...
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, Ellen, yes. Yes.
Well, it's an advantage too now, because we can speak many different languages out in the middle, so the opposition don't know what's going on. So it's all part of the tactic, and and we're getting better at foreign conditions.
Oh dear. You speak about rehabilitation. I'd like to ask a question. We've got some pictorial evidence. Your rehabilitation, Scott Styris, because you were a fantastic cricketer. You were a natural number 8 batsman. You were a great 4th or 5th change bowler. There was a lot you had going for you as an international cricketer. But on the downside, there was this combustible temper. We never knew when the blonde was going to be replaced by a flash of ginger, and you just exploded. I look at a couple of examples. So in fact, here's you and Mitchell Johnson, where I think you're pointing out that his moisturizer perhaps was in need of a change. He didn't have his moustache there, so a lucky break there. And then this will disappoint and hurt South Africans. This is you and Faf du Plessis. Again, you've probably had a mention that those trousers are 2 sizes too small. He hasn't taken it well. But I asked you about rehabilitation, and I think we saw signs that maybe you were capable of that rehabilitation. Because listen, I'm not sure where Faf's right hand is there, but you're looking a little nervous. But then if I look at how you made up, and this is a beautiful, poetic moment. So then getting a tongue out through the grill and then just becoming friends again. And you've come full circle, haven't you, Scott Styris?
Yeah, well, we had to be teammates about 2 weeks after that at the Chennai Super Kings in India. So that last one was, we both knew that we had to be teammates and we knew we had to get on. So we sort of had to dial it back a little bit. But yeah, that was an interesting one. Only twice in my 12 years of playing for New Zealand have we deliberately targeted a player and gone out and tried to get stuck into him and I don't know if abuse him is the right word, but really get under their skin. The first, funnily enough, was another South African, and that was Graham Smith. And that was because he was that young captain who we knew the senior players didn't really like as being the young captain. So we tried to drive a wedge between the two. And as soon as Stephen Fleming opened his mouth, he would bite and jump back. So, you know, we worked with him. And then Faf was the other one, funnily enough, before that game, because that was a quarterfinal of the World Cup in Bangladesh, I think it was. And nobody had heard of Faf du Plessis. He'd played maybe 5 games for South Africa at this point. But he had come out in the media and made these big statements about how he knew his game better than any other player in the world. And South Africa were the best team in the world and they knew it. And all they had to do was play well and they would win the World Cup. And we sort of sat there and thought, well, who the hell is this guy? Who does he think he is? And the plan was hatched that we were going to get into him and remind him that he was this no-name guy that nobody knew. And then to our advantage, second ball in, he runs out AB de Villiers, which of course is a huge move for you know, anyone, a huge boost. And AB's walking off, he's left in the middle by himself. And that's when we all just came around him and flew in. And he, you know, openly says it just took him by surprise. But it was a planned move from us, to the point where I think Kyle Mills, one of our fast bowlers, who was 12th man, got fined 120% of his match fee. He got fined more than he was actually supposed to earn because he came on and pretended to hand a drink to someone and gave a little elbow to the jaw on the way past. So, you know, there were 2 times that it actually worked in our advantage, but they were the only 2 times that we ever stepped up. Because remember, as you pointed out, we are the nice guys of cricket and we have everybody fooled brilliantly.
Oh dear, the career that you've had has been extraordinary. We were Alan and I were counting out. You've played in 81 different countries around the world. I think you still hold T20 records in Finland, Malawi, Puerto Rico, and certain parts of San Diego. And it's been a remarkable career. You've been 12th man for teams all over the world. If you had to have a look back at all of those teams, I think it's some of the great ones like the Leicestershire second 11. If you look across and back at all of those, which was the one you had the most fun playing for?
Well, I guess just a couple of parts to that. The most unusual places that I have been to was Kuwait to play cricket, and which was an unusual place. I really enjoyed it, actually. And then Papua New Guinea was another one. Actually, and we had a pre-season first-class team, pre-season tour to Rarotonga, who didn't even have a cricket pitch. So those were some of the unusual places. You're quite right that we went on cricket trips, specific cricket trips. But look, you know, you're quite right. I played a lot. I played 8 seasons of county cricket, played in South Africa, played in the Big Bash, in New Zealand, all of those things. And, you know, the best thing is that the people in all those sides are good guys. You know, I can count on one hand how many absolute dickheads that, you know, are in the game.
Are they all Australian?
No, they're all New Zealanders, funnily enough. But
how is Mark Richardson?
Yeah. But, you know, and I absolutely loved it. And I was, you know, you talked about Adrian Caper and how he would have gone in T20 and IPL cricket. Well, I would love T20 cricket to been around when I actually started as a 19-year-old, as opposed to when I was 28 or whatever it was. So, you would have got the opportunity to be in different dressing rooms, see how different people think and tick. And that's why I don't think you see the level of, like, those confrontations that you were talking about. You don't see them anymore because, you get to know these guys as people, and all the cultures, all the religions all sort of blend into one. And I think it's a great thing for the game. And that's far too serious an answer.
It's a good answer, though.
Yeah.
Let's go for something that's far less serious, because we don't like to cause controversy on this show. It's something we go out of our way to avoid. Why do you think Indian cricket is in such a bad state?
Oh, I know, isn't it? I mean, it's taken them, 50 or 60 years to realise that if they just got their systems in place, they'll dominate the world game, wouldn't they? And that's what they're doing. I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, I enjoy, without sort of feeling like I'm jumping straight up their backsides, that the amount of talent over there is just off the charts, and the level of their uncapped players that we see in the IPL is just phenomenal. And it is quite rightly the envy of all the rest of the cricketing world, which I think makes our victory that we had last week just so incredible. They could put out 2 or 3 teams and be equally as competitive. And that's, I guess, a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the game, to be perfectly honest. India need to be strong. That's where all the money's generated from, to spread out all around the world to keep the game going. So, they're scarily good, and a pretty good feather in the cap of our side for managing to beat them.
A huge feather, actually. What do you think the changes in New Zealand cricket, though? Because you were part of a fun and great side under Stephen Fleming and some of the other captains and some fantastic players, but always with semi-finalist, quarter-finalist, almost there. What's changed in the last couple of years? What's made this team so spectacular?
There's probably 2 things. One of those is completely out of our control because of the lack of players we have and the lack of resources that we have. We just simply get lucky that a group of guys come through together at the same time. The likes of Williamson, Bolt, Southey, the backbone. They're 2 of our 3 greatest bowlers. Kane Williamson, our greatest ever batsman. They've all come through together. And then when you add in BJ Watling, whose numbers are our best ever keeper, we've got Tom Latham, whose numbers are going to end up being our best ever opener. All these guys are now in the same side together. You've got Devon Conway, our best ever import. These guys, when you put them all together, they make such a good unit that, you can do all the planning and all the throw all the money you want at it, but that either happens or it doesn't. But the second part is that we've always had a few good players, but then finding a really good depth and system. But they've decided that they're not going to bring guys in for a half a dozen games and then get rid of them and drop them. They're going to say, right, we don't have the resources. If we think you've got talent, you're not quite ready yet, you'll come in, but you'll play for 18 months. That way you learn the game at the top level and you get better, but there's no fear of being dropped. So they're doing a lot of things right. And you throw in the odd thing like an A tour, which we've never had. These sort of things have been great for our game. And we've now got probably 15 or 18 players capable of playing at the top level, which has never been the case before.
All right, kudos to you. So it has been a pleasure watching you play and see the team do so well and lift that title, which of course we take the majority of credit for. I know you're an enormously keen golfer. When you were out here in South Africa as the golf concierge of the Chennai Super Kings, playing 3 to 4 rounds of golf a day, most of which I think I'm still picking up the tab for. You had an enormous amount of fun and thoroughly enjoyed it. Given that love of golf, before we jump into our quiz and then one final set of questions, if you had the opportunity to play around at Augusta,
that's it, no more,
with 3 professionals of your choice, with 3 professionals of your choice, could be Tiger, could be McIlroy, could be DJ, Michael Campbell, whoever you want, but to play with them, and I'm not going to ask you who the professionals are, but to play with them, you have to then spend an entire week in the same hotel room with Danny Morrison. Would you still play a round of golf?
No. No, of course I would. Yeah. Yes, Danny's fabulous. I love it. He's got this ability to, his whole family come from a theatre background. Not that you could work that out, I'm sure, but he just says, right, it's time to go to work. It's like putting on a costume, and away I go, and I have my character, and I go to work, and I go about doing all these, and the impressions and the voices and the sayings. It's just awesome that he's able to do that, because when he played cricket, I don't know if you remember back in that time, Adrian Caper days, he was nothing like that. He was serious. There was no jokester about him. So it's quite phenomenal to see the way he's flipped that on its head, and he now goes around in the world having fun commentating cricket. And I can tell you, in some places, India being one, and certainly in the Caribbean, which surprised me, he's a bigger star. He's who the public want to meet more than the players,
right?
Because they enjoy his commentary. His style would never work in New Zealand. People don't like it, but
look at that! It's another DFL maximum for the Triple K. Look at the Triple Ks. They've gone huge. It's amazing.
Yeah. But gee, how good did that round of golf be? I would take Bryson and Brooks Koepka just for the entertainment value alone.
Yes.
I don't care who the fourth is.
so someone who can manage security, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe Lexi Thompson can come along.
She did actually mention in a press conference recently how much he reminded of her dad. So that'd probably be a good comparison.
Yeah.
Mr. Styris, we have, as we come to the end of what has been a very, very special session with you all the way from New Zealand, two things to do. Alan's got a quick fire set of questions for you. Before we do that, we have our weekly quiz. Now, I can tell you, some people have done very well. Alan Lamb got 4 out of 5 on this particular quiz. Did extremely well. I think JP Dermody got 1 out of 5. Vernon Philander, Chris Morris of kind of middle of the road. Darren Goff, Darren Goff got 4 out of 5 as well. So let's see how you go. We've got 5 questions.
Were they about himself, Goffy? Were they about his own?
He sent us the questions, and he still got 1 wrong. All right, here we go. Right now, just a couple of weeks ago at Lords, a South African scored a double hundred on Test debut for New Zealand. Who is the other Kiwi to have got a double hundred on Test debut?
Oh yes, I can get that one. That one's Matthew Sinclair.
It was indeed
against the West Indies at the Basin. 99-2000, I remember that well. He also got 150 against you blokes over there.
We don't remember that. I don't think that happened.
So I get extra. I need extra marks for when I do get one wrong.
All right. Yes, indeed it was. Matthew Sinclair got his double hundred off 8,612 balls, which was his fastest scoring innings of all time. He was a very exciting cricketer to watch at the crease. Right. You got 107 on your Test debut, which was 108, more than most people predicted. Who just missed out on 100 in the same innings, scoring 95?
Ooh, that could be my best mate. That could be one of the guys we were talking about earlier, Mark Richardson, was it?
It is indeed. The camera shy doesn't feature on any television shows in New Zealand, Mark Richardson.
Yeah.
For South Africans, Mark Richardson does the news, the weather, the sport. He's then on a soap opera, followed by a documentary series, and then CSI Lower Hutt, in which he is the star. So there's really nothing.
Who's the South African equivalent of Mark Richardson these days?
Because
I see Andrew Flintoff's on TV a lot for England, so he'd be their guy.
Yeah, we don't really have quite the same kind of space in South Africa. I think our sports guys don't tend to go into that kind of area. They're mostly going to sell photocopiers and play 9 rounds of golf a week. I'll have to think about that. We'll come back to you on that. We'll come back to you on that.
Anything to earn the big rand, the big money.
Oh, convert it into New Zealand dollars, and you're selling magazines at traffic lights. Right, question number 3. I'd like to know from you. Here's a photo of a cricket stadium. Which stadium is this, Scott Styris?
Oh, good question.
Now, I'll give you a full point if you can name it. I'll give you half a point if you can name the city.
Oh, wow, I've got no idea. It's in the subcontinent. Does that count?
No, it doesn't, because that's 81% of all cricket grounds on Earth.
Yeah. Gee, I've been to all of them. Where would that be?
Tick.
Yeah, how long do I got? No, I'm going to take a guess. It's not the new Ahmedabad Stadium, is it? It's way too small for that.
No, I'm afraid it's not. It is, in fact, the stadium where you played your final one-day international. It's the R. Pramadasa Stadium in Colombo.
Wow.
Well,
which
not even
you,
the right country.
you remember fondly.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Right, as our Sri Lankan
I can tell you that it didn't look anything like that when I last played there. So that's obviously new.
Of course it is. All right, you're 2 out of 3. It's solid going so far. Your very last test match was against South Africa at Centurion. You got dismissed by 2 people in combination. Who were the 2 South Africans responsible for your dismissal?
Could have been any of them, to be honest, at any time as well. Steyn and Boucher.
Steyn and Boucher. Well, almost right, except for the 2 that you named. Otherwise, you were on target.
Yeah, I don't know.
You
forget.
You nicked Jacques off to AB de Villiers.
Really?
Does it ring a bell? No.
No. Really? Okay.
You did indeed. All
right. I'm trying to pump myself up. If I get out to Steyn, I can understand it, right? I mean, that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think Callis beat you in the air.
Yeah.
All right, last one for you. A day that neither Alan nor I remember fondly because you were at your imperious best against South Africa, a test match high score of 170. It was an innings of beauty and brutality in equal measure. I think those are your words at the press conference afterwards. I'd like to know once again, which 2 South Africans brought that innings to an end?
Yes. Yeah, it was Boyer and the slip. Whoever the slip was. Who fell there? Callis or Pollock.
One of the 2.
Or Graham Smith. Graham Smith could have been there. No, I'll go with Pollock.
Pollock is correct. It was Pollock and bowled for Yay for 170. 3 out of 5, 60%. Well done, Scott Styris.
That's good.
Disappointing.
Look, I have to tell you, you are the best performing New Zealand all-rounder who went to Hamilton Boys High we've ever had do this quiz on the show. So, not to be sniffed at, Scott Styris.
No, I know. I'm disappointed. I expect better. I'll do it with a smile on my face. You can call me the nice guy of your show. How about that?
All right. We'll make it slightly easier now. We move over to some quick fire questions. You've got to be like Herschel Gibbs. No thinking. Just answer out as quick as you can. Are you ready? So for you, sir, as an all-rounder, batting or bowling?
Oh, batting.
Stephen Fleming or Kane Williamson?
As a captain?
I don't care. Just which of those 2?
Oh, Captain Kane. Kane is a batsman. Fleming is a captain.
Sir Richard Hadley or Clive Rice?
Oh, Sir Richard. Who's the other guy? I never heard of the other guy.
I'm getting upset. I'm just calm down.
He was after your time.
Well, look, I mean, think of it from a meal's perspective, which I have these days. Rice is always an accompaniment. You always accompany rice with the main course.
I hear you. Right. No, I'll take that for the reasoning. Ian Smith or Graham Smith?
Oh, Graham Smith, easily.
Easily.
He's the only South African I've ever come across with a sense of humour.
Beating Australia or beating South Africa?
Oh, God. Well, I'm going to say Australia because South Africa it happened a lot, funnily enough. Did you know, actually, that's
Go
the
on.
1990s was the last time you guys beat us in the Cricket World Cup.
Yeah, I
pulled that out. I pulled that out on Dale Steyn in India the other day, and he didn't even smile. He didn't. I thought, oh, it's a bit too soon, and I moved on.
It will always be too soon.
For us,
My
rugby, it's been.
My memories of New Zealand are the 1990s, where we would bowl you out for 37. In fact, we'd bowl you out 4 or 5 times in a day, and then add another innings and add another innings. But you're right; that is a long, long, long time ago.
Yeah, beating Australian cricket.
In a fight, who would win, Brian McMillan or Craig McMillan?
We could tie. He's a right-hander, Brian McMillan. Yeah, we could tie his right hand behind his back. Probably tie his left hand behind his back as well, and he would still beat Craig McMillan up easily. It's not even. That couldn't be further from a mismatch that I've ever heard. Probably.
All right, winning this ultimate test, which was an amazing achievement, as you suggested earlier. But would you take that, or would you exchange that for winning the one-day World Cup early in the year, if you could?
No. Keep it as is.
Okay, good. I like
it
that.
As is.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, you're the first champion, right? First champion's got to mean something more than.
Yeah. And it's also proper cricket, isn't it? It's proper.
No.
Yeah,
no,
we're not even bothered by World Cups in South Africa. We don't even participate in it properly. Not concerned.
That's probably the best approach you could take as well, since they're usually so far away, and the noose is still around your neck. That's probably why I think Graham Smith is funny, because Graham Smith's the only one who can take those sorts of jokes when we bring them up. Still think of 03.
You said he was a nice guy. Anyway, it's fine. All right, last. Facing Alan Donald or facing Glenn McGrath, which do you choose?
Oh, Glenn McGrath all the time. Yeah.
In other words,
Glenn McGrath, even for someone of my extremely limited ability, I found him quite easy to face. But scoring off him was a different matter. You took your life into your hands when you tried to score off him. Alan Donald threatened you physically with the speed and the pace and the bounce and all of those things that come from it. But to be perfectly honest, straight up serious answer as well is that it's a Ferrari or a Lamborghini there, isn't it? You can't go wrong with either of those two.
Brilliant.
But yeah, give me McGrath.
All right, and then finally, give it some thought, but not too long. Sir Ian McKellen or Dame Kiri Tikanawa?
I'm going with Dame Kiri Tikanawa, just simply for your pronunciation of it, which wasn't too bad, I must say. Well done. How long did you try and practice that before you got it out?
Hours.
You've been on the phone to me since last week.
All right. Well done, Scott Styris. Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Listen, Scotty, before we let you go, it's been an absolute delight catching up with you and having you back on catching up with you again. I've got a request for you because there's somebody else I'd love to have on Two Full Tossers. So this is your task to track him down. You will have seen earlier we had Alan's Lost Legend, and we do that every week with a South African cricketer most people have never heard of. Capes is a bit of an exception. But if I go back to when I must have been about 8 or 9 years old, I was watching the New Zealand under-23s. Dan Vittori was part of that squad. Jeff Crow was the manager, and they were out playing in Zimbabwe. And I had my little autograph book, and I went up to the change rooms at the end of the day's play, and there was only one person left there, this fairly big, broad-shouldered fella, and I asked him for his autograph. And he signed it for me. I had no idea who he was, but I knew he was from New Zealand or Australia, or wherever that team was from, because of his accent. And he signed it. And then I asked him for the others, and he said, sorry, mate, they're all gone. And he saw my little face drop, and he took my autograph book, and he went inside the change rooms. And after a few minutes, I thought he'd stolen it. It had Graham Hick's autograph in it. So I thought he'd stolen it because he wanted Graham Hick's signature. But 20 minutes later, he came back. He had the entire squad from the New Zealand under-23s and the Zimbabwe squad sign that autograph book for me. And so to this day, with apologies to you, Scotty Styris is a good mate of mine, my all-time favourite cricketer is Mark Greatbatch.
Ah, tremendous.
Wow. Mark Greatbatch. That was not the name I was expecting from you. Yeah, he coaches the school just up the road here. Actually, that's what he's doing now. the two main cricket schools. Mark Greatbatch, he's one, and Dipak Patel was the other. Yeah, and they go head to head. They were teammates for many years now. They're in charge actually.
That comes full circle because he was the breakout star from the '92 World Cup for New Zealand, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, both of them were really, because Dipak Patel, Dipak opened the bowling, which was the bowling. Because of the captaincy of Martin Crowe, and you're right. Greatbatch was out there trying to thrash it to all parts of the ground at the top, which is what we see now as being part and parcel of the game.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll mention that. I'll see him on the golf course around every now and again, I'm sure. You want him on here now, do you? You want him on the show?
We'd love to have him on. So I can be starstruck and adoring, much as I am every time I see you, Scotty.
Oh yeah, well we know that. We both know that. I'll see what I can do, mate. I'll see what I can do.
All right, final question for you, and it's an important one given that we've got two South Africans and an Australian masquerading as New Zealander. Do you think there's any chance that New Zealand will ever bounce back as a rugby nation, or is it just now focusing on cricket?
I like how you've invented this COVID thing just to keep an unbeaten record going for 18 months or so, isn't it? That's what you've tried to come up with.
20 months.
There'll never be another Rugby World Cup. That's why you're forever the holders. Is that the grand plan? Is that what you've got?
It's genius, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It's one of the saddest days. I flew to Japan, arrived on the day of the semi-final, and about 12 hours later, we were out of the tournament. From that semi-final, so I sold my tickets for the final because who would want to go and watch that rubbish? And went to the pub and drank too much. That was sort of ended up my first ever trip to Japan was being forced to go. But I tell you, I got good money for those tickets, which you'd have liked. But to come back to your question. Well, I think we've got our first test match this weekend, actually. So I'll let you know after that how we're looking, whether we got you in our sights.
We're waiting.
We can't wait for it. Listen, Scott, it's been great catching up with you. You have an open invitation on the golf courses of South Africa, as and when you can make it back. It's been a delight having you on the show, and we'd love to have some of your fellow Kiwis. Unfortunately, the day that Danny Morrison is available, we're busy that day. We've got a full show, but otherwise, any of them, very happy to see them. And thank you so much for arranging the internet for New Zealand for today, just so you can join our show.
Cheers, boys. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Right,
there we go. Scott Styris, all the way from Auckland. He's a fabulous guy, isn't he?
100%. He does make you almost like New Zealand, doesn't he?
Almost. There's a
get close. What a good catch. Well done, you, Dan. That was great. That was lots of fun.
All right. Well, we are going to have another superstar on the show next week. As usual, we've got absolutely no idea who it is. Depends who answers their phone between now and next Monday. But it does allow me to say a huge thank you once again to Scott Styris and to Ronaldo Silvestri, our small Portuguese producer who's wanted in 11 different countries for an assortment of offences, and to the wonderful, great, and completely incomparable Mr. Alan Committie with his collection of largely pirated DVDs joining us on the show. Alan, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the cricket. Enjoy the rest of the T20 series. And we'll see you back again next Monday on Two Full Tosses.
Good night.
Good night.